On the floor of the world's oceans lie dozens of submarines that never returned to port. Some were sunk in combat, others disappeared in circumstances that have still not been completely explained, and a few simply vanished into the silence of the depths without anyone being able to find them for decades. They are steel tombs sealed at pressures that crush any human structure in total darkness at temperatures near freezing point. During the Cold War, the disappearance of nuclear submarines also became a geopolitical and environmental crisis of the first order, because those sunken hulls carry inside them nuclear reactors and, in some cases, atomic weapons that continue to rest on the ocean floor. When modern underwater vehicles finally find them and document them, what their cameras reveal is a combination of military history, human tragedy, and latent environmental risk that the world has still not resolved. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. The Soviet submarine K-129 was one of the most enigmatic and geopolitically charged cases of the Cold War. The K-129 was a Golf II-class submarine, equipped with 3 ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads, and it disappeared in March of 1968 in the northern Pacific, about 2,900 kilometers northwest of Hawaii, in waters with depths of more than 5 kilometers. The Soviet Navy carried out a massive search lasting weeks without finding anything. What the Soviets did not know was that the United States Navy had detected the explosion of the submarine through its secret SOSUS hydrophone network, the sound surveillance system installed on the Atlantic and Pacific floors to monitor Soviet submarine movements, and had located the remains with considerable precision. What followed was one of the boldest and most costly intelligence operations in history. The CIA, in collaboration with the company of billionaire Howard Hughes as a cover, designed and built a special vessel called the Hughes Glomar Explorer, ostensibly destined for the mining of ocean floor nodules, but in reality equipped with a giant mechanical claw capable of descending more than 5 kilometers and lifting sections of the sunken submarine. The operation, known as Project Azorian, was executed in the summer of 1974. The Glomar Explorer arrived at the position of the K-129 and began attempting to recover the forward section of the submarine, where the nuclear missiles and the control room were located. The partial recovery that was achieved was spectacular from a technical standpoint and profoundly tragic from a human one. The mechanical claw broke during the ascent, and most of the recovered section fell back to the bottom. Only a portion of the bow of the K-129, about 12 meters in length, reached the surface. Inside it, CIA teams found the bodies of 6 Soviet sailors, coded publications, conventional torpedoes, and other intelligence materials of considerable value, but not the nuclear missiles. The 6 sailors were buried at sea in a ceremony that was filmed and which the CIA partially declassified in 1992. The video of that ceremony, in which American officers rendered military honors to the dead Soviet sailors, is one of the most unusual documents of the Cold War. The case of the K-129 is not unique. The K-219 was a Soviet Yankee-class submarine equipped with 16 nuclear ballistic missiles that suffered an explosion in one of its missile silos on the 3rd of October of 1986 in the North Atlantic, about 1,000 kilometers northeast of Bermuda. The accident was caused by a propellant leak from one of the missiles, which ignited in the silo. The crew attempted to control the fire for nearly 4 days, while the submarine navigated on the surface with Soviet assistance, but finally the K-219 sank on the 6th of October of 1986. The 16 missiles with their nuclear warheads, as well as the submarine's reactor, rest today at more than 5,000 meters depth in the Atlantic. The story of the K-219 acquired an additional dimension when the testimonies of the survivors were published, including that of sailor Sergei Preminin, 20 years old, who was the last to leave the reactor room after manually closing the control rods to prevent a meltdown of the atomic core. Preminin managed to close the reactor but became trapped by the differential pressure of the hatches and died inside the submarine. He was posthumously decorated as a hero of the Russian Federation in 1997. His sacrifice prevented what nuclear experts have described as a potential catastrophe of incalculable proportions in the North Atlantic. The most media-covered submarine in recent history in terms of search was the ARA San Juan, an Argentine TR-1700 class submarine that disappeared on the 15th of November of 2017 in the South Atlantic, with 44 crew members on board. The San Juan sent its last radio message from a position about 430 kilometers east of Patagonia and then disappeared. The initial search, in which vessels and aircraft from more than 12 countries participated, found nothing in the following weeks. A year later, in November of 2018, the exploration vessel Ocean Infinity, equipped with state-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicles, located the remains of the San Juan at 907 meters depth on the South Atlantic floor. The images obtained by the Ocean Infinity ROVs showed that the hull of the San Juan had imploded, collapsing in on itself under the water pressure at the moment of sinking. The subsequent analysis of the seismic data collected at the moment of the disappearance, carried out by the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, determined that a hydroacoustic anomaly consistent with an implosion or explosion had been recorded at 10:31 on the 15th of November of 2017, a few kilometers from the last known position of the submarine. That anomaly coincided with the moment the San Juan stopped communicating, confirming that the tragedy was instantaneous. The 44 crew members died in fractions of a second. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. In the Norwegian Sea, the remains of the Soviet submarine K-278 Komsomolets, the only attack submarine of the Mike class ever built, have rested at 1,685 meters depth since it sank on the 7th of April of 1989 after an onboard fire. The Komsomolets was technologically highly advanced for its era. Its hull was built of titanium, which allowed it to dive to depths of up to 1,000 meters, twice that of any other combat submarine in the world. The fire began in the turbine room and spread rapidly. Of the 69 crew members, 42 died, most of them in the hypothermic waters of the Arctic after abandoning the submarine. The Komsomolets is especially concerning from an environmental standpoint because inside it, in addition to the nuclear reactor, it carries 2 torpedoes with plutonium warheads. Since the early 1990s, Russian expeditions have monitored the state of the hull and analyzed the surrounding water for signs of radioactive leakage. Expeditions from the Kurchatov Institute of Russia and the Norwegian Institute of Marine Research have found on several occasions elevated levels of cesium-137 and plutonium in water samples taken near the wreck, although the concentrations have officially been described as below the thresholds of immediate risk. In 2019, a Norwegian expedition using an ROV found that the seals of the torpedo hatch had suffered significant corrosion and detected a plume of water with concentrations of cesium-137 up to 800 times higher than the normal levels of the Norwegian Sea in the vicinity of the hull, according to results published by the Marine Research Institute of Bergen. Sunken nuclear submarines are not only a legacy of the Soviet Cold War. The United States also lost 2 nuclear submarines during that period. The USS Thresher sank on the 10th of April of 1963 during deep diving tests in the North Atlantic, about 300 kilometers east of Cape Cod, with 129 people on board. It was the first nuclear submarine to sink in history, and the disaster led to a complete review of submarine construction and testing procedures in the United States Navy. The USS Scorpion sank on the 22nd of May of 1968 in the Atlantic, about 740 kilometers southwest of the Azores, with 99 crew members. The exact cause of the sinking of the Scorpion was never conclusively determined, and it remains one of the greatest mysteries of American naval history. Both submarines were located and photographed on repeated occasions by United States Navy ROVs. The images of the Thresher show the remains scattered over an area of several square kilometers at 2,560 meters depth, indicating that the hull suffered a catastrophic implosion followed by the dispersal of fragments by the currents. Those of the Scorpion, at 3,048 meters depth, show the hull in relatively better condition, though also collapsed. Both reactors remain on the bottom and are periodically monitored. The most recent studies, according to reports from the United States Navy published in 2012 and 2019, indicate that radiation levels in the immediate vicinity of both wrecks are within the natural variation ranges of the ocean floor, although monitoring continues. The technology of autonomous underwater vehicles has transformed the ability to document these wrecks in recent years. Systems such as the Nereid Under Ice from Woods Hole or the AUVs of Ocean Infinity can operate at depths of thousands of meters for hours or days, generating high-precision three-dimensional models of the sunken hulls and taking water and sediment samples with an accuracy that no manually operated ROV could match. The images these systems produce are of a clarity that decades ago would have seemed impossible. Identification numbers painted on hulls can be read, structural damage can be seen in millimetric detail, and the way marine fauna has colonized the steel surfaces over decades can be observed. They are visual documents of a history that the ocean preserves in its darkness with a fidelity that no archive on land could surpass. Leave your like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.